Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'll go over my thoughts on PMQs from earlier today. As usual, as Sunak as good as admitted there are no safe routes for people fleeing the war in Sudan, even actually for some British nationals, it seems. But also Starmer got a hook onto what is being described as Sunak's bacon sandwich moment. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I'm going to do this in a bit of a different order because I'm going to go straight for Starmer's end bit. At the end of his series of questions, he attacked Rishi Sunak as being effectively comically out of touch. Starmer referenced some of Sunak's more embarrassing moments from the past year. Didn't even go through all of them. You know, how he boasted that he didn't have working class friends, how he boasted about how he as Chancellor took money away from deprived areas and gave it to already wealthy ones. And then this.
So out of touch that he looks at a petrol pump and a debit card like they've just arrived from Mars.
This was the ill-fated stunt which Sunak pulled last year. He wanted to be filmed filling up a car and paying for the petrol, so he asked for a willing employee to lend him their modest car, because obviously it wasn't going to look good putting fuel into whatever he drives. So he wanted to be filmed putting fuel into an ordinary car. He had himself filmed doing that. He had himself filmed paying for it with a can of cola. Unfortunately, went a little bit wrong when it transpired that Sunak, the richest MP who has ever lived and the minister in charge of the country's finances, doesn't actually know how transactions work. He didn't quite get it right. The guy was trying to scan the can of Coke. I need to add that onto your thing. No, not the card. Sunak was trying to put the card there. I'm not trying to charge you for your card. I want the can of Coke. Eventually he got it. Poor guy on the kiosk was trying to explain to him, but he got it in the end. But it was quite painful to watch. The attack ads are, of course, one way of trying to show the policies which Sunak is and is not in favour of. But this detachment from reality gets at the heart of his unsuitability to shepherd people through tough times, because he doesn't share in those tough times. In fact, he doesn't even understand them. He cannot even carry out a simple transaction without help, without guidance. You know, it's been described by one commentator by the name of Stephen Fielding as Sunak's bacon sandwich moment, which references the unfortunate image which Ed Miliband as Labour leader created, which helped the Conservatives make fun of him. Only all Miliband did was eat a sandwich and have an unflattering photo taken of it. Sunak didn't understand how a transaction works. You know, you could also bring up his equally painful moment. Actually, I would argue more painful moment last year, when he asked a homeless man if he worked in business. You know, and Labour, of course, need a line on Sunak. Labour are more popular than the Tories. The Conservative Party as an entity are not going to rescue their reputation before the general election. As tragic as it is to hear it, Rishi Sunak is one of their best assets. If Labour stop that being the case, two things happen. First, the Conservatives lose the only hope they have of not being obliterated in the general election. The trick is for Sunak to do what Johnson did in 2019. Say to voters, yes, my party's rubbish, but I'm different. I'll do better. Second, if Sunak is no longer the asset he currently is, then the fragile unity that he has worked to build collapses. So Labour will want to push this a lot, and I'm sure they will. But as for Starmer's other questions, which covered essentially the cost of living crisis and taxation, specifically the unfair nature of it in terms of the distribution of taxation, all it did was to expose that Sunak has now gone full Boris Johnson with the blatant lies. Early on, Sunak tried to claim there are record numbers of people in work and fewer people in poverty. Both are objectively lies. In terms of the number in work, Sunak will be using the old Boris Johnson dodge and meaning salaried workers. But this is not people in work. That has to include the self-employed as well, doesn't it? In fact, such are our Labour problems that the government have been complaining for months now about all the middle-aged and elderly people of working age who have left the workforce. Their focus for labour shortages has been to try and attract these workers back. Not exactly a sign of record numbers in work, is it? As for poverty, this is a grotesque lie. He's not even using a convenient baseline. You might think to yourself, oh, well, maybe poverty's gone down since, say, last year. No, the latest poverty statistics, which are right up to date, show that the number in poverty is currently on the increase. Not that you'd even need to see the data. Like, it's simple enough. If people have falling real terms incomes, in other words, if any rise in income they get is less than inflation, obviously people who were borderline are going to fall below that line into poverty. It's obvious. If you're just about managing and then suddenly the increase in costs exceeds the increase in pay, you're going to drop below into poverty. I mean, it's so obvious. And if this happens year on year, it's going to be quite a lot. You know, I said last week that Sunak was really just going for it on the Johnson level lies. And I thought, well, maybe he tried. Maybe he tried when he became Prime Minister to be the sensible Prime Minister, to sort of rein some of those excesses back. And maybe it just didn't work. You know, the far right of his party is still firmly in control. He's not strong enough to stand up to them. So he's just given up and he's now going full Boris Johnson with the lies now. Or maybe he always was going to and he just didn't have the confidence to begin with. You know, I had to laugh at one point. He accused Labour of taxing the wealthy more. He didn't just say Labour will tax you more. He specifically said Labour will tax the wealthy more, as if this is a stinging criticism. And I thought afterwards he was just setting himself up for Starmer's line about being out of touch, really, wasn't he? I'm not sure how many voters have an issue with the very wealthy being taxed more. You know, when Sunak tried to talk about Starmer's special tax break from his time as Director of Public Prosecutions, which actually doesn't give him any benefits in reality anyway, because his pension pot's not large enough, Starmer repeated that he would get rid of it in government. He said that's the difference. He will scrap tax benefits even if he loses out, but Sunak wants to keep his. Then Stephen Flynn for the SNP asked about Sudan, specifically safe routes for refugees. He asked what safe routes existed for, say, a child refugee fleeing. Answer came there none, because there aren't any, are there? The Conservatives should really give themselves a long, hard look here. See, they claim that they're acting against economic migrants, not refugees. Oh, they were fine with refugees. You know, they say they have safe routes, but they don't. Nobody can deny that Sudan is a very dangerous place right now. It's impossible, is it? Because we know that British nationals need evacuating. So it is impossible to describe it as safe. So how does a child refugee, let's say you've got a child refugee with family already in Britain, so natural for them to want to come to the UK. How do they get here? How do we help them get here? Sunak had no answer, because there isn't any way for them to get here other than, of course, on a very dangerous route, including a trip across the channel. You know, Sunak basically said, oh, we're prioritising Britons, as if the right thing to do, we're prioritising Britons, by which he means doing very little for Britons and hoping that the French and Germans will find time to help UK citizens out. So Flynn tried again. He noted that Sunak was not able to say there are any safe routes, so asked if this means that the government would detain a child refugee coming from Sudan to the UK. Again, Sunak had no answer, meaning that he is as good as confirming that his latest, or his Home Secretary's latest harebrained legislation would have that child refugee fleeing war, travelling to, family, extended family already living in Britain, detaining them, clapping them in irons, and then deporting them back to that war zone or some other hellhole. So a pretty good day for Sunak, really, wasn't it? He was exposed as a completely out-of-touch leader of the nasty party. I'm sure that's what voters want to see. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.